How's it going, everyone? So this is going to be my follow-up video to the Kitgun video I made quite a while back. I kind of want to do this because, well, I want to do other projects and I kind of want to get everything out of the way before I start anything new. So this is going to be a video about the Infested Kitguns and, surprisingly, kind of the problems that Warframe really has with everything that is not melee weapons. So with that, let me just go ahead and jump right into the video. So let me just get this out of the way. The best real Infested Kitgun is the one that acts like the Empress, that allows you to branch out and just maximize it for status chance and use it as a primer for anything that has a condition overload type mechanic attached to it. That's how you get use out of the Infested Kitguns. The problem here is really the fact that it's not a melee weapon, because you can't use condition overload on it. Because condition overload is essentially the go-to thing for anything in Warframe that is not really low level. And this is really kind of the systemic problem that Warframe really has, is that something is really good and is actually really balanced if you put it in a vacuum, but everything else sucks compared to it. So you have this whole large gap between floor and ceiling, and the actual real problem is that everything's actually geared towards the top end near the ceiling, but D wants to nerf and lower the ceiling down to the floor. And this would be alright if the marketplace would be closer to that of a PvP game, of where it's more centered around having a very narrow gap between those two. However, whenever you have something that is a power fantasy, well, you really want everything to be near the ceiling and not the floor. As well as having large gaps doesn't really hurt the game itself. Now, it does create less meaningful choices, but as long as you're satisfying the actual need for power fantasy, it does its job. And so when someone decides to nerf or lower the power ceiling when the enemy is geared towards that, and you take away an option, you de-incentivize people from trusting you. And that's a big issue in any company, because customers' trust directly correlates to how much money they're willing to pay you. And let's face it, the biggest problem that Warframe faces right now is the fact that DE has completely burned through almost all of its trust that they've built up over the years. And while I can say more, I think I will just leave it at that, because this video isn't really about what Warframe needs or should be doing. With that said, let me move on into the actual Kitgun part of this video. Moving on to the actual Kitgun build, it's pretty much build for the most status chance that you can, as well as trying to build for the complementary effects, status effects that you want to apply to make sure that your melee weapon will be doing the most amount of damage with its condition overload. That's pretty well the basics. Pretty much the gameplay is that you load up as much status that you can with your weapons, going with, well, either your secondary or your primary first, then you basically switch to quick melee to deal as much damage as you can. Now, I suppose you could use this as a budget Amprax, but I really wouldn't. I mean, that's a lot of effort for building up to something that isn't really even going to be anywhere close. If you really want a good infested weapon, then I'd probably just say save up for the arm cannon or the really expensive infested bow that acts like the Brahma or the lens, but just the infested version. Much more fun. And I guess as bonus content, if you kind of wanted to try out the other infested chamber, pretty much the infested grenade launcher, here's the build that you can possibly use if you really want to. Just be mindful that this isn't going to be the best Kitgun you can possibly make, but hey, it can be pretty fun if you got a rhythm for it, or if you just want to make a bunch of clouds spreading around statuses. But here you are. Anyways, that pretty well wraps up everything. I have a few more tutorials and guide videos, mainly only really one more Warframe topical video. Unless if you guys have anything that you want me to talk about with this game, I'm going to be more focusing on Monster Hunter, as well as maybe some Genshin, as well as, well, the games that's going to be coming out pretty soon. But I hope that this video is helpful, and I will see you in the next one.